All right. Next step, LAMP. I promised it to you last week. Here it is. But this is only half, right? Remember, we did the whole WordPress thing. Well, Windows did the whole WordPress thing for us from start to finish. And if you were paying attention, you caught each of the steps that we're about to do, at least on the Windows side. But it's a bit different because in Linux, you've got to manually set up a lot of this stuff. I don't know of any easy button for any of this kind of thing. So the big thing that you really have to pay attention to, or that you really have to do, is just pay attention. So I've got some instructions for you. These are actually pretty standard. Just that these are written the best, it seems like to me. And why reinvent the wheel with that? But what I want to do in this is really just kind of explain what it is that you're doing, so you're not blindly typing in commands when you go through this. So yeah, you kind of have an idea of what you're actually doing. So anyway, what we're after this week, LAMP stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. That M has changed over the years from MySQL to MariaDB in some instances. If you're running on CentOS, you're dealing with MariaDB. Now, here's the deal with that. The syntax, which is to say the commands that you're dealing with, the things that you're typing in, the way that the database is put together, the way that you create them, delete them, all that stuff, that does not change regardless of whether you're on MySQL or MariaDB. It doesn't matter. It's the same. So if you're trying to run through this on a different version of Linux or something like that, at least the MySQL/MariaDB commands, those are exactly the same. Now, you may need to do more stuff on CentOS, just simply because they tend to have security at the first and foremost in their minds, but that's kind of the idea. The MariaDB commands will be identical. So there won't be much to think about, at least once you get to the point where you're typing in MariaDB or MySQL. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think when you install MariaDB, you can just type in MySQL, and it'll do the same thing. Anyway, just kind of a recap. Install Apache. You've already done this, though. So we did this, 2 or 3 labs ago. So there's really not a whole lot that you need to deal with at this point, so you can actually skip that part. You can also skip this part. We never installed UFW, and it doesn't come installed by default. However, the whole idea with this is that you would need to run this. Sudo UFW allow in Apache full. So when we went through the Linux course, we dealt with IP tables. Well, actually, I don't know if you guys did, because I just recently changed it. So regardless, IP tables is how you would typically deal with this, and it would not nearly be this easy. The thing about UFW is it stands for Uncomplicated Firewall. The idea with this is that it's going to be as easy as it possibly can while trying to get the most security squeezed out of it that you can. There is a profile already existing in UFW called Apache. Up here you can see there's a few: Apache, Apache Full, Apache Secure. You can look at each of them by sudo UFW app info Apache Full, and you can see what each of them does. So Apache Full opens up 80 and 443 over TCP. That way, regardless of whether your site is unsecured on port 80 or secured on port 443, it will work, or it will allow those connections to happen. So all you're really doing here is just turning on that profile. Those ports get opened, and you'll be able to access your site over the IP address, or in our case, the hostname. So you've seen this part before, right? Just get there. When you install Apache, this is what is available to you right at the very beginning. As long as the firewall is open, you can type in IP or hostname. You'll get there. This step as well. If you're on the internet, you don't even have to do this. You guys know what an IP space A command looks like. You don't have to go this far. So if you guys remember in the Linux script that I made you guys do, you had to go in and I think we used the cut command and the tr command and a couple others to just pull out the IP address, or to just get like inet and then the IP address or something like that. This is basically the exact same thing. So if you want an example of how to do this in a more, what's the word? I guess I'll say complex way, what it'll do is IP show eth0, right? It's just going to show you, well, it's going to pull out the inet line, so the line that starts with inet. Then it's going to get, I think it's the second column here, and then it's going to pick a start and stop point. And what it's going to do is it's just going to bust out the IP address for you. So I guess I'll go ahead and run it for you so you can see what it actually does. But that's not going to work for us because we don't have an eth0. We have enp0s3, and that's what it does. Right? So it just dumps out the IP address for you. But I'm in my Mint machine, so I'll need to log into the server to do that. Again, if... there we go. We'll do that again. There you go. So you can see the new stuff, right? That one was 100. This one is 2. But this is nice for scripts and things like that, that you just need to be able to pull out the IP address of. Anyway, either way, not the point. Just wanted to show you how that worked, so that doesn't just look like gibberish to you. All right. So the idea is also that you can do this. So if you have curl installed, if not, you can install it like this. This website, ICANN has IP, literally just tells you what your IP, your public IP address is. So I would encourage you guys to run this just to see. What it's going to give you is your home IP address. Whatever your ISP is, whatever they assign to you, that's what it's going to tell you. All right. Now we're down to the meat. Now we actually have to do something. Here's the deal. So step 2, installing MySQL. This is something that we haven't had installed at this point. Notice the $, just ignore that. That $sign corresponds to this, right? You don't type that part in, so ignore it. You want this, right? It's going to be that easy, right? You can actually do a lot of copying, pasting here. In general, before you paste anything into the terminal, you need to know what it does. If you find security write-ups on security postmortems, really, I guess is what you can call them. But it's after a company gets knocked over by ransomware or some other kind of crazy malware. You will see in some of those that an admin or somebody else, someone with privilege, ran a command that did something bad. And they'll go back and they'll say, well, I just copied this command off of this I thought was a trustworthy website, but there was something like JavaScript behind this, right? So whenever you actually copied and pasted this and you hit copy, it copied something different. You guys played with JavaScript a little while ago, and you know that it's active. It can do things on a website. And in some cases, well, in malicious cases, I guess, JavaScript can hide text behind the text that you've highlighted. And when you hit copy, it copies the hidden text. And that might be something malicious. So anyway, long story short, before you ever hit enter on any of this, before you copy it, read it. After you copy it, know what it does. Before you hit enter, be positive of both of those things, right? So in this case, all it's going to do is install MySQL-server. Notice, by the way, I'm logged into my server, not Mint. It's going to tell you, number 1, I need to run a few updates, but number 2, there's a bunch of packages that it's going to install, as well as some packages that I need to remove. Yeah, these packages up here I need to remove, but so you can ignore that. This bit. Oh, no, stop doing that. There. Yeah, these packages are going to be installed. These packages are recommended or suggested to you. You don't need them. And then overall, that's what's coming in. So while that's working, so after it's all installed, you're going to want to do this, the MySQL Secure Installation. The idea with this is that, along with a lot of software, right? I mean, it's installed with default values. Sometimes those default values are extremely security conscious, and sometimes those default values are not. The thing with MySQL Secure Installation is that the default values are actually not horrible in MySQL, but the point of this is so that you get to choose how MySQL behaves. It's not up to MySQL, right? It shouldn't be up to MySQL to decide how secure your installation is. So you decide. It's the whole point of all of this. So anyway, it goes through all that. Sudo MySQL Secure Installation. And it's basically just going to set some ground rules for you, right? So validate password plugin. If you have additional users, or if you just want to make sure that you yourself are choosing good things, it checks the strength of your password. Do you want to set that up? And I'm pretty sure I say yes. Yep. Yes to the validate password plugin. I don't think I tell you which one. You may choose, any of the 3 levels of security. So it doesn't matter to me. But take a look at it, right? Oh, I keep doing that. So low, medium, strong. This is what you would consider the same as the Windows complex password, right? Numeric, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and it can't be a dictionary word. Actually, medium would be the Windows. This one also checks for, I don't know why it's got a weird space there, but dictionary file. This also checks to make sure that your password isn't a word in the dictionary. And that dictionary actually contains more than just regular words. But medium is a pretty good choice. However, strong is always better. So choose what you want. It's you'll choose 0 for low, 1 for medium, 2 for strong. Whatever you want to do. I'm going to go with medium just because. What I'm looking for, I think, is, I think I said to take a screenshot of that. Yeah, take a screenshot of the estimated strength of your password. Right? That shouldn't be 1. But then, do you want to continue with the password provided? Yes. Now, here's the deal with this. This is something that you actually did during the Windows process that you may not have put together just yet. When it asks you, what do you want your root password to be back in the Windows setup? That's what you've just done. You've chosen the root password. So be aware. Whatever this is, you should note it. And are you sure about that? Yeah. You do want to remove anonymous users. There shouldn't be anybody that is able to look at your database except for the people that you have specifically authorized. Unless for some reason you have a database that you want people to be looking at. In this case, we don't. So anonymous users, no thanks. I don't know if I actually... No. All right, but in this case, no, we do not. I'm sorry. Remove anonymous users. Yes, to remove them. Yes, we do want to remove them. I was reading that wrong. Anyway, so normally root should only be allowed to connect from localhost. This ensures that someone cannot guess the root password from the network. So this is the idea, right? We're going to create ourselves a WordPress user to access our WordPress stuff. But even WordPress needs to just be a local-only user. Root, just like in Linux, there's going to be a root user. You can't really turn it off, but you can restrict it. And that's what we're after here. We do not want root to be able to log in from the internet. If we want root login, which we probably aren't going to ever need it unless for some reason like we forget our WordPress user password or something like that, we can reset it with root. But again, you should probably have privileged access to the machine before you have privileged access to the database, right? So you should have SSH credentials like we have here before you can ever log into root. You would have to SSH into the box, get local access to the box, then you can log in as root under MySQL. So yes, we want to disallow root login remotely. And then test database. Not that anything special gets put in the test database, but get rid of it anyway. Unless you just want people poking at it for no reason. And that just takes up CPU time, right? Takes up RAM. So you're just giving away free real estate, man. Don't do that. So remove the test database. Yes. Now, reloading privilege tables basically just means that all these changes that you made, you want to make those go into effect right now. So you reload privilege tables. Yes. Okay. Now, this is the thing. All of this stuff happened for you in Windows without you ever having a choice, without you knowing about it, and you're just oblivious. This is the whole thing about, I think, when you get into Windows and you set stuff up. You were never asked any of these questions. You hope that things like remove anonymous users was done for you, but do you know? How do you check? So, and I think there's just such a huge push to do things in Linux because it's cheaper. It's one of the big things. In a lot of cases, it's more performant. So you end up with just a double whammy of, well, why aren't you doing it in Linux? But the downside there, at least the people that are administering it, you got to know. You have to understand what's going on. And tools like the MySQL Secure Installation, those help a lot. But now that we've got things like MySQL and Docker, you just need to be able to configure those things outside of Docker either way. But going through it like this gives you at least the bird's eye view of what needs to happen on a database. So when you get into the more complex things like setting it up in Docker or some other kind of container, you at least know some of the questions that you need to answer when you're deploying something like that. Anyway, so step 4 here is just further down. That was all of that, right? And it's saying, validate, choose that, gives your strength. All right, and after you go through the rest of it, you're all good. So we need to change our authentication method in MySQL, so we'll do that now. Anyway, so sudo MySQL. Let's get into MySQL. Now, check. We're going to see what authentication method we have by using this command. Now, the reason I'm copying and pasting is because there's just so much room for error. I mean, there's just so much to type there. I consider myself a pretty good typist, man, but yeah, just in the interest of time, it'd just be easier for me not to make the typos. Anyway, so here's what we're doing though. Select. So we're telling MySQL to grab user, authentication string, plugin, and host from the MySQL user database. Just give me them all. Give me all the users, all of their authentication strings, all of their plugins, all of their hosts, just from that table. And databases are just considered tables. Well, things in databases are considered tables. And it's going to say, right? And it does make it kind of pretty for you. Root, MySQL session, MySQL sys, Debian sys maint, as in maintenance. And then you see, there's no auth string. We use auth socket, and it's here on the local machine. So what we're after is we want to change root at localhost. And we want to give it a password by password. Now, here's the deal, right? When you do this, you're not meant to be sharing your screen to, however many people on YouTube or whatever. So this bit is what you want to do, outside of this. But it's going to stay on my screen, so I'm just going to do it. But I'm going to do it with a password that I don't care about. Yay! All right, so let's go through this one more time. Alter as in change, right? This user, root at localhost, and you do need these quotes, the single quotes. You want him now to be identified with a password, and there's a plugin called MySQL Native Password. Right now it's auth_socket. Now it's MySQL Native Password. And basically what this is you can log in with the root user on the Linux machine, but now we're blocking that. We're saying don't do that. We're saying put a password on the user itself. That way, if you know one, you don't know the other. If you know the sudo password on the Linux machine, you can't also get access directly to the MySQL root user. So, right, the old trusty. Okay. And it tells you every time you do anything. It's like, yep, cool, I took that. It's a little more verbose than Linux can be sometimes. And then here. So I remember I was talking about that very last thing that we did on the MySQL secure installation. What it did, this is actually what it did. So, flush privileges. And then we're going to run that same command again. Right? This is the same exact thing that we ran before at the very beginning to show us all the stuff. But what I'm looking for is, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. This changed. It used to be this. Now it is this. It used to be a blank auth string. Now it is this. Good stuff, right? All right. Yeah, so after you're done with it, that second time you run this command to get this second table where you see this line right here, that's where you take your screenshot. I just want to make sure that password authentication is enabled for you. Don't forget your password. That gets really interesting later on. After that, we move on to PHP, which is way simpler than it looks. All right. And then you can exit, right? At least MySQL. We'll come back to MySQL when we're ready to start creating our WordPress stuff next week. Right now, we just wanted to get that stuff set up. PHP. That's pretty much the bulk of it. That really is pretty much the bulk of it. All right, so here's the deal, right? PHP is just the language that lives in between MySQL, your database, and Apache, your web server. Now, you could use MariaDB for your database, or you could use Nginx for your web server. Doesn't matter. PHP is the glue, so we need it. We need to install it anyway. So the easiest way to do that, really just run this command. PHP, libapache2 mod PHP, and PHP MySQL. So PHP is the language. Here are the additions to be able to understand Apache, because there's an Nginx one as well if you wanted to do that, and then PHP MySQL. Now, MySQL works with MariaDB, so you don't have to worry about that, but there are other databases, right? There's like Postgres, for example, and there's a PHP module for that. But the deal with this is basically these are the basic ones that you want. The language, the plugin for Apache, the plugin for MySQL, and that's pretty much it. But there's a plugin for everything. So if you add a new piece of software, something like that, there's probably a plugin you need to install from PHP. So sudo apt install, PHP, those things. And PHP and those things. And then same deal. It's going to add a couple additional things. So PHP CLI, which is nice just in case. PHP Common, these are just the common libraries that all PHP installations need. And a few others. But let it do its thing. Shouldn't take long. We'll come back to it. So then we need to go actually check out what's going on. So because we installed PHP, we want to actually put PHP at the top. So do you remember this file? I made you go in there before. And the thing that we didn't actually change anything because this is how it was written in the first place. But after directory index, we had index.html. I just needed you guys to go in and verify that index.html is in the front. Now, we're swapping it. This is the same thing that we did in Windows, right? Like in Windows, we installed WordPress and index.php was not in there. At least in my video, like, yeah, I spent 5 minutes digging it up, and if I'd have read my own instructions, it would have been apparent to me what happened. But, you know, I had to go re-figure it out again, but it's fine. The idea was that index.php was not in the default document, I guess, area. It's a file, but it's an area in Windows. And that was the deal, right? Like, I had to make sure that it was there. But in this case, it is there, but it's way down on the list. So what we want to do is we want to make it first on the list. This is actually going to make a little bit of sense as we get into the WordPress stuff. We're really just kind of prepping at this point. But this won't actually, rubber won't meet the road on this one until later. Anyway, so we need to go look at this. And then what we'll do is just sudo nano that file. And as it is, right, index.php is back here, just like they said. Index.html is at the front. You can like try and cut and paste or whatever, but we'll just swap the what do you call those? Extensions right there. Right? So that's it. What you want, index.php at the front, index.html somewhere else, doesn't really matter. This is the main part. This is the important part. If you wanted to be absolutely sure that nothing else but index.php gets picked up, then you'll just delete the rest of these. You only have to have one. And so long as it exists in the directory that you're telling Apache to look into, it'll work. All right. So let's save that. Get out of there. And then whenever you make changes like that to any of the configuration files of any specific thing, of any particular service, you need to restart that service. Remember, as we did DHCP, every time you made a change to your subnet or something like that, had to restart DHCP. Same with bind. Every time you added new things to your zones or made any changes to those named.conf or something like that, you had to restart it. Same for Apache. You have to restart it every single time that you do anything. So, sudo system control, restart Apache 2. Redo that. Or restart that. And that's really it. I mean, you can check the status of it if you want to. That's just always good practice. Make sure it's active running. If it's not active running, you made a typo somewhere. You have to be really careful with that. That's the biggest thing. If you make typos, it's probably going to be failed, dead, something like that. So be aware. Down here, as you've probably seen a billion times with your DHCP or your DNS, the errors are going to be down here. It's going to tell you, it is going to give you at least a little bit of idea of what's going down, right? If for some reason it doesn't fully explain to you what's going on, then of course, journal ctl-xe is probably going to be your best bet, at least to start. And, journal. The idea with that is the X stands for give me extra information, and E stands for get me to the end of the log, which means that you'll see the most recent stuff first. Right? And then you can actually see, right, where we restarted Apache. everything should be good, you know. Finished starting up. So if there was something that went wrong, it would probably tell you. So begun shutting down, finished shutting down, service has begun starting up. It would probably tell you right about here. Anyway, clear all that. All right, so the rest of this is pretty much just telling you how to install additional modules if you want it. So Apache, or I'm sorry, apt search PHP dash pipe less. So you're just getting that list, right? So apt search, you don't have to do this part, but right? I mean, these are all the modules that you can install for PHP. And there are a lot of them, right? As I mentioned before, if there's something that you can run on the web that has to interact with a database, then there's a PHP module for it. Oh, there's a Markdown one. Cool. That's cool. I like that. Markdown's a really easy way to take notes, stuff like that, and be able to render them on the web. That's really cool. But yeah, so right, that's kind of the idea with this. You don't need any of those. We already have the ones that we need, so no big deal there. And it's just showing you how to look through them. Apt show package name, right? If you wanted the PHP CLI one, which we do have, that installed automatically, you would install it like that, right? Blah, blah, blah. Now this, you don't have to do anything here. You can skip this step. So think back to the Windows thing. When we were going through, the default directory that it was going to create for us was going to be in that in WordPress, right? So when you go to your site locally in Windows, it was hostname / WordPress. If you want it to be that way, then you'll go through step 4. Right? So sudo make dir, and then var www, and then you would put WordPress here, or your name, or whatever you wanted to call it, /blog / it doesn't matter. So whatever you wanted to type. So my server is ubu srv, and then I would do a /, and if I wanted that to be my blog, so I wanted to literally say blog, so it would look like this, right? I would come in here and start creating blog. And as you go down, you have to go mention it here. No, I'm sorry, missed it. Mention it here. You have to edit the sites available file to whatever it is, blog.conf. Then go into it. Add what's called a virtual host. And this is so that you can run multiple websites. We're only running one. This is why we can skip this. We're only going to run the one, the WordPress. That's all. And then you would come in and define all these things. Right? Where is it at? What's the name? How do you get there? What directory am I looking for files? So I can show this site. And then you would Apache 2 enable the blog.conf site. You would Apache 2 disable the original default.conf, and then it'll come back and tell you, oh yeah, you do the config test. Basically, it's just run a test run on this. It'll say, yeah, cool, everything's cool. Then restart Apache and everything's good. But again, step 4, you can skip it as long as going to, in my case, ubu srv is okay with you. When you go there, you'll see WordPress. Not yet, because we haven't set it up yet, but that's the ultimate goal. So the last thing we need to do then is step 5. We just need to make sure PHP is actually working. So in this case, and the reason I go through that is because I need you to know that if you did not create this, you will not go there. Right? In our original lab where we started to mess with Apache, you know where to go. var www, not blog or whatever, but HTML. Right? This was the site. This is where we were playing before. This is where you copied all your web practice stuff. So what we're going to do here is create a file. Right? So please understand, if you did not do step 4, this is going to be HTML. I'm going to create this file, info.php. Oop, did not mean to do that. And I don't even know why I was trying to copy. That's not a lot of typing. So I'm in the var www.html directory. I'm going to create a file, info.php. Now this bit is what you want. And this bit is probably best to copy and paste because there is no additional spacing, but there are carriage returns, and those matter a lot. What you're doing is basically saying, all right, this first line is basically saying, hey, everything that you're about to see is PHP. Then this is a command. Well, essentially calling a method, which is PHP info. And that method basically just displays info. That's what that does. And then you're saying, all right, cool, that's the end of my PHP. Right? This should kind of remind you a little bit of JavaScript that we saw before. And I mean, that's what PHP is. It is a programming language. Aw, oh no. I'm going to have to manually do it. It didn't let me copy it. Oh, I think I just copied it weirdly. How about that? Let's see. Okay, cool. All right. And the cool thing about Nano is that it will actually color code for you. So if you see green in like weird places, right, it should be green, not green, green. If you see it any other way, the copy paste broke. Something broke in the copy and paste. So anyway, all right. So save that. Get out of there. Double check that it's there. Yeah, info.php. Cool, cool. What you want is you want others to be able to read. Because notice root owns both the user owner, which is this one, which is this one, group owner, which is this one. So this is really the permission that's going to matter to Apache, your web server, pulling the files. Anybody trying to get to your site is acting as Apache. So those are the permissions that matter. Anyway, so the idea is that once you get that file in there, you don't need to restart or anything like that. You need to go to your domain, whatever that is, info.php. So in our case, that is info.php. But Firefox is always weird sometimes about this. Well, always weird sometimes. Sometimes weird. And there you go. So notice info.php, that's the file we just created. This is what the info, PHP info, whatever that thing was. This. And notice, there it is. This is what that does. This will tell you. This is running on a Linux server named ubusrv on this kernel. That kernel was built on May 26th. We're dealing with this through Apache. Here are all the modules that we have installed. Right? This is not information that you want out on the public internet. The whole point of this is to verify that PHP is working. If PHP is not working, you'll get a blank page or an error, one of the two. If you get either of those things, go back. Make sure that you are running, that you ran every single command. Like, it even goes so far as to tell you what user and group Apache is running as. So this is literally telling you that if you are able to own www data from like the internet or something like that, group ID 33, user ID 33, that you'd be able to act as Apache. Right? Tells you where Apache lives on the system. Tells you even more about it, the things that it's able to do. Tells you the exact version of it. So you can take this, go to a CVSS library, which is basically just a library of vulnerabilities. Check Apache, that version, see if there are any vulnerabilities for it, and then use those vulnerabilities against my server. So anyway, long story short, do not leave this file in there. And as a matter of fact, it's part of your grade that you delete it. All right? This tells you everything anybody ever wanted to know about your server and how to take it over. At the best, or at best, for you as an admin, this is some of the juiciest reconnaissance that anybody could ever do against your server. So, long story short, run info.php just so you can see that it's working, everything is good, and then immediately go and delete that file. So, whoa, no, get out of here. I don't need that. Right. Go in and delete it. But take a screenshot, right? Before you do that, complete that. Step 4, navigate there. Take a screenshot of the PHP page. So take a screenshot there. I just want to see that you actually saw that page, and then remove it. I want to see that rm command as well. So we'll get out of there. Sudo rm info.php. Get rid of it. Now when we go back, let's see. There we go. You get a not found. That's exactly what we want to see. All right. Gather up those screenshots. Shoot them into me. That's all I need from you this week. Yeah, so a lot of that was just explanation. To be honest with you, you could probably get this lab done in about 10 minutes. So, either way, get it done.